Yes, ketogenic diets for drug-resistant epilepsy. I'm a senior research fellow here at ICH and also an on-the dietitian at QS. So what are ketogenic diets? In essence, they are a group of high-fat, low-carbohydrate, moderate protein diets designed to mimic the state of starvation on the body. So in normal circumstances, predominantly we use glucose as our fuel, but the ketogenic diet aims to make fat and the production of ketones as the main fuel. Ketogenic diets are the treatment of choice for certain neurometabolic disorders, for example, glucose transporter type 1 deficiency syndrome and pyruvate dehydrogenase complex deficiency, and they're used in the treatment of epilepsy and other neurological disorders. For example, right on the street, mostly at tertiary centres. This is a timeline of the history of ketogenic diets and their use as a treatment for epilepsy. In essence, they are by no means a new treatment for epilepsy. Quotes that people with epilepsy who, for some reason, let's say they were ill, stopped eating for a while. There are numerous quotes that their seizures lessened or ceased. But it wasn't until 2008, so quite a bit later, that in our department here at ICH, we did the first randomized controlled trial showing the effectiveness of the ketogenic diet in children with epilepsy. And we're still continuing that work today. So this is a very, very, very brief rundown of the different types of ketogenic diet-related studies that have been going on in really centralized through the Developmental Neurosciences department here at ICH. So SAID RCT, the first one is the screenshot you can see at the top there, publication. But also at the same time as this, with our ChemPath colleagues, they have been over the past at least decade looking at the effect of certain medium chain triglycerides, so decanoic acid namely, on seizures. And that has led to a clinical trial, feasibility and tolerability trial, of turning their work on decanoic acid into an actual supplement to try and get the same effects as the ketogenic diet on seizures, but without actually having to go on the ketogenic diet. And I'll give you a little snapshot of those results later. We have also been looking at the genetic basis for response to ketogenic diets. That was my doctorate a while ago. We have also formed the basis of ketogenic dietitians research network, and we have had numerous publications from this network, which is fantastic. And we've got what we do is create very relevant clinical resources, or we hope we do anyway. And one of the most recent ones is the Keto Meal Planner, which you can see up on the screen there, which is a pictorial resource. Basically, in the ketogenic diet, patients and their families have exchange lists, but usually they're just lists. And we managed to get funding to create an online resource where there are pictures of the amount of food that corresponds to said amount of carbohydrate and said amount of fat, for example. And also you can bring all of those different foods together to build a meal. So it's very useful to people who are considering starting a ketogenic diet to get an idea of what the portion sizes look like and what sort of food they can be eating, which is fab. And also in the background, of course, we've got numerous case note reviews, systematic reviews, those kind of things going on. For example, we published one on the use of the diet in status epilepticus alongside our clinical colleagues at Bosch. Kiwi trial is sort of the next step following on from the first RCT published in 2008. This is the Kiwi trial headed by Professor Helen Frost, my boss, in Developmental Neurosciences. This is a randomised controlled trial, multi-centre UK, which we've now ceased recruitment and are just analysing the results, with the primary aim of determining effectiveness of the diet on seizure frequency compared to a further anti-seizure medicine in children aged under 2 years with apparent drug-resistant epilepsy. And the hypothesis is basically that the diet's a bit better than the next anti-seizure medicine. In essence, the most important inclusion criteria is that there's an infant age 1 to 24 months at diet start, that they have a diagnosis of epilepsy, and despite them having tried 2 previous anti-seizure medicines. They are still having 4 seizures a week. And after informed consent, participants undergo a baseline period where their seizures are recorded. When I say recorded, the seizure frequency is recorded. This is usually for 14 days, although those who are deemed to be very clinically unstable undergo a 7-day recruitment period. And then they are randomized after this period to receive a further anti-seizure medicine or the ketogenic diet. And then they continue on those treatments, hopefully with no other change in treatment, for 8 weeks. And that was the end of our primary outcome period. And then they're followed up for a year, independent of whether they stay on the diet or that particular anti-seizure medicine or not. Recruitment, it's been a slow challenge, uphill struggle, shall we say, with COVID obviously not helping. But we have now ceased recruitment, and we pretty much got the numbers that we were looking for, which is fabulous. And there were 18 centres across the UK involved in this in the end, which is fantastic. You can almost see all of our consults around here. Basically, 136 children were randomised, of which 78 were randomised to the ketogenic diet and 58 randomised to receive a further anti-seizure medicine. These are just the numbers. The sort of effectiveness parts and tolerability bits of the study are being analysed. So watch this space. And now, do you remember the bits that I was saying alongside our colleagues in ChemPath that were working on decanoic acid and medium chain triglyceride? That we brought this to patients, and in collaboration with VitaFlow, a nutritional company, they produced a supplement which was very high in decanoic acid and also had octanoic acid, another medium chain triglyceride in. And this had a unique formulation of the ratio of the 2 MCTs. And in children with epilepsy who were not following a ketogenic diet at that time, they took K-Beta 3 to 4 times a day alongside a usual diet, their usual diet, although they were advised to limit the intake of refined high sugar drinks. They did this for 12 weeks, and this was a feasibility trial looking primarily at tolerability, acceptability, and compliance with K-Beta said supplement. So we had 36 females and 25 males. This included children and adults, mean age of 10 and a bit in children and just over 35 in adults. In essence, it was all very, very, very positive. So their blood levels of both decanoic acid and octanoic acid increased. And actually, the levels of decanoic acid in the blood reached more or less the same level as what you would expect to see in a medium chain triglyceride ketogenic diet, which is great. But crucially, only 4 individuals out of the whole cohort became ketotic, which is what you would normally see on an individual on a ketogenic diet. But despite this, we still saw a significant decrease in seizures. There's a big caveat in that, yes, our study was not the primary aim of the study, but of course it's something we're very interested in. And it was 38% of children that had at least 50% seizure reduction, and 50% of adults had at least 50% seizure reduction. And at least the childhood figure is very similar to the figures that you see in KD studies, which is great. And generally, K-Beta was very well tolerated by the participants, as long as it was introduced very slowly. But that was the whole point of finding this out. Other KD-related research that we have in the pipeline, we are in the middle of setting up a keto registry. So in the pilot stage of this, so recording prospective data for individuals who are recruited and they're referred for a ketogenic diet in clinical practice, which of course can be used for a myriad of things. We're hoping to get funding to start a program which is designed to help individuals initiate and stay on and adhere optimally to ketogenic diets. And we have other smaller side projects going on, for example, looking at what happens to individuals when they come off the diet after they have been on the diet and responded well to the diet. These are my apologies. I'd like to invite any questions. Excellent.
In terms of acceptability from the children's point of view, did you gather data on acceptability either to children or
You talk about the K-beta one, yes, via means of a questionnaire, basically. Yes, and we also, so yes, questionnaire sort of, did you like this attribute of the supplement XYZ, which was sort of mostly came from the industry who sponsored it, but also we looked at sort of harder measures, if you like, of their prescribed dose, and comparing that to the actual dose that they took as well. And it was very, very variable, but we learned that really the introduction phase was the key thing. And we actually did a protocol amendment to allow more flexibility with that. And when we implemented that, things changed quite a lot actually, and we kept more people, and people seem to be tolerating it better. So. No.
What did you class as ketosis?
We classed as blood beta hydroxybutyrate of at least 1.
So they scored that value. With the others, away from that.
Yeah, so I looked also at those who had 0.5, and it's a couple. Basically, they had less than 0.5 was most of them. So again, maybe a couple that are between 0.5 and 1. But in a ketogenic diet, normally you'd be looking at least 2. So that's why we took, we took 1. But yeah, the definition of ketosis do differ, but really up to 0.05 could be any one of us after a, start. Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. As well. Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Are they found important animal and plant fat?
Yes, they are. But these are synthetically made. But coconut, and also really randomly goat. You'd have to have quite a lot of goat to have it.
And was the half-life of these bad years?
That's also what we were actually looking to determine, and no, we don't know. But they may have moved on in the laboratory. But from our point of view, that was also something that we were looking at, because we weren't entirely sure when to take the blood measurements in relation to their last dose of K-beta. We did it within 2 hours, and it still seemed to be on average high, as high as you'd see in an MCT ketogenic diet. So I would guess less than that, but I can't